My name is Arye. It means lion in Hebrew. I'm 40 years old. I've been here in Israel for 34 years. I was born in New York, and we always had a deep connection to Israel. My father had come here when he was, I think, in college, and it was always a dream to come back here. And we came here in 1986 for a visit. I was born in '83. And we loved it, and in 1990 we moved as a family.
Oh.
And I've been here ever since.
Ooh, that's good. So you have been here for a long time. So, what do you think the relationship and between Israel, and then what's your opinion about this country?
I love Israel. I love Israel for a very simple reason. Israel is home. And when I say Israel is home, I don't just mean Israel is the place that I'm from or my family's from or that I have history in. It's all that. When I was in America, my home was also home.
Yeah.
But the minute that I left my house, it wasn't home anymore. If I walked around, if I walked to I went to a different city, it wasn't home. Here in Israel, it doesn't matter where I am. I could be up north, I could be down south, I could be in a place that I've never visited before, and it still feels like home, which is an unbelievable feeling, and I'm pretty sure that most people here feel that. Meaning if I took a tent and I traveled 3 hours to either direction and I just put the tent there, it would still feel like home. That's something special.
It got a connection of it, right?
Yeah, there's a connection to the land. Again, it's a connection that's much deeper than just who the politician in charge is right now. You might like the politician, you might not like the politician, right? You might like the government, not like but those things change, constantly change. The connection to the land is the same connection that's been there for over 3,500 years. And that's powerful.
You have mentioned that you've been a soldier in Israel. Can you briefly talk about that?
Sure. There's mandatory draft here in Israel.
Yeah.
So when you are 18 years old, even before 18, you get still in high school, either at the end of 10th grade or end of 11th grade or beginning of 12th grade, you get something called your first call-up. And the first call-up are just some medical tests and psychological tests sort of to see what unit you might be good for. You're allowed to request certain things, like if I want to serve in this unit or that unit, you could put it down on paper that that's what you want.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that that's what you'll get, but the Army does try to combine between what you're good at and what you want, and if it's the same, then they'll put you in the same unit. But if you're really good for this, but you want to do this, it's not necessarily something you do. Now, I had 2 older brothers already that served before me, and they were in the infantry. They were foot soldiers, and that's something that I wanted to do. I had various tests for different units. They wanted me to actually do other things. They actually wanted me to be in the Navy for whatever reason. I don't know what about me they thought was good for the Navy. And within that specifically, they wanted me to be in submarines, which I said, have you seen me? I'm a big guy and submarines are pretty small. It wasn't something that I wanted. So at the end, I managed to get what I wanted, which was to serve in an infantry unit. I was an armored scout. So we're the guys that go before the tanks and scout the area, whatever it is. And yeah, that's what I did. I went to the Army 22 years ago. So it's been a while.
Are you still serving with the Army?
Reserves, yeah. Still in reserves.
So just on and go. If you got
go
a call,
you go in, you go out.
go.
Yeah.
So if you got an emergency call, if they need you and you are free, you will go for it.
Correct.
Serve for your country.
Correct.
That's cool. How do you feel? What's your opinion to the conflict recently happened in the country?
So again, as I had mentioned, I said all conflict is terrible. War, by definition, is a terrible thing. It's not only that we didn't start or want this war, we don't want any war. You know, as I've been taking you around today, showing you, Israel is a peaceful country. It's not just something that I'm saying to try to convince you. You could see it. You see it. Even though you have soldiers in the streets and, you know, they have guns because they have to have guns. Nobody has guns because they want it, because they think it's fun to carry around. It's in fact not so fun. It's annoying to have all the time. But I said on October 6th, there was peace. There was quiet. I don't want to say peace. It was quiet. It wasn't fully, you know, peaceful.
Yeah.
But it was quiet, and it could have, on October 7th, also been quiet. On October 8th, it also could have been quiet. But on October 7th, we were brutally attacked in the worst attack ever since the Holocaust, right?
Yeah.
So since the 40s, 1940s, the worst attack. I said over 1,200 men, women, and children were brutally murdered, raped, burnt alive, and it caused a trauma, a national trauma. And we're now over a year later, still fighting from that initial trauma. You know, I said, people say, oh, you should do a ceasefire, do this, do that. Yeah, but they're still holding our hostages. Said if they had released our hostages, there would have been a ceasefire, it would have been peace. There would be less destruction, there would be less death. And on Hezbollah, right now we're in Lebanon, but we only went in 2 months ago after a year of getting rocket fire. And prior to that, of course, for many years they were shooting, but I'm saying there was an intensified firing since October 7th. If they hadn't done that, we wouldn't have gone into Lebanon. So there's no desire here for war. There's no feeling of hatred. There's no posters anywhere saying let's hate people. We just want to live in peace. We want to be left alone. And by the way, if there was peace right now, Israelis would be traveling to Lebanon. They'd be traveling to Iran, to all these different countries, because Israelis love to travel. And we would get along great. But you need to have both sides wanting that. It doesn't help that one side wants peace and one side wants to kill you, right?
Yeah. So you think the things that Israel is doing is just like a kind of a protection, a defense for your own country?
It's not only for us. We're doing something that is not really spoken about in the world. And I'm not saying that this is the reason that we're doing it, but it happens to be another thing that we're doing, is we're not only protecting our own citizens, and by the way, our own citizens are not just Jewish. Our Israeli citizens are Arab, they're Christian, they're Druze, right? Not Jews, Druze. We have Bedouins here, we have Circassians, we have a lot of different types of people here. And everybody lives fine, they live peacefully. So we're protecting everybody that lives here, A. B, we're also protecting, believe it or not, the people of Gaza and Lebanon from the terrorists who hijacked their place, right? They hijacked Gaza. Hamas, people say, oh, they were democratically elected. Well, not so sure how freely democratic those elections were, but even if they were, that was 20 some odd years ago, and since then they haven't had elections, and it's been a brutal regime. So I agree that the people of Gaza are suffering, and it's terrible, and I wish that they weren't. But they wouldn't be suffering if Hamas hadn't launched the attack, and if Hamas wouldn't continue holding the hostages. I said, had they released the hostages, first of all, had they not attacked, it wouldn't have happened at all. But even had they released the hostages that first week or that first month, then a year later we wouldn't still be in this war. So I pray that it happens soon. I hope that they get a little bit of common sense.
But for for the news and for the people that they think, but Israel keep attacking Gaza. They attacking the school. They attacking the hospital. And they are killing the Gaza citizens. They just like it's worse than Hamas. Then how do you think about that? The opinion.
Right. So it's actually a great question, and I'm glad that you asked that. I wish that Hamas did not hide amongst the civilian population. It'd be a lot easier to just take care of them. Unfortunately, almost every house in Gaza has been turned into a shelter for terrorists. Many of the houses have tunnels that lead down, and those tunnels aren't to protect the civilians, right? They're solely for the usage of the terrorists. Now, again, you don't have to believe me. You could say, Arye, you're making this up. You're Israeli. You're Jewish. You're lying. Okay, but look online and look what they themselves, right? Hamas has been on interviews saying the tunnels are for us. They're not to protect civilians, right? They admit that they put, you said hospitals, right? Hospitals, schools, kindergartens, all of those things have been hijacked and utilized by the terrorists, not only to hide terrorists, but to hide the weapons, to shoot from, right? And again, these are things you don't have to believe me. You could look online and look on YouTube and check for videos and say, where are they shooting from? Oh, they're shooting from, right, from a school. So what's the expectation from Israel? That we should get shot at from a school, but we shouldn't shoot back at the school? That's first of all. Second of all, if Gaza is such a densely populated area, think of Hong Kong, right? Very densely populated. If Israel was shooting weapons, and everybody agrees that we have a very strong army and we have high-tech weapons, if we were shooting high-tech weapons at Hong Kong for an entire year, how many dead people do you think there would be there?
Maybe million?
Million or more?
More,
right? It's terrible the amount of death that there is in Gaza. However, the number, like I said, given the official number given by Hamas, which is now I think 43,000, has been already proven by the UN not to be a reliable number, so it's less than that, but let's say that it is 43,000.
Yeah.
We've been bombing one of the most densely populated areas for over a year, and only 43,000 people are dead. Now, again, even one person dead is terrible. However, again, within the context of war, that's unheard of. The ratio of civilians that are killed versus terrorists that are killed, right? And you have to believe we must have killed some terrorists, right? It can't be that we've been shooting and killing everybody except for terrorists. Like they keep saying that out of the 43,000, most of them are children. What does that mean? Where are all the adults of Gaza? All the adults are hiding somehow, and somehow the Israeli army is spending, by the way, very expensive missiles, right? Warfare costs a lot of money. So we're spending hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in order to kill children? Like that's what people around the world really think? Like if you stop to think just for a second, suddenly like, oh, wait a second, maybe that's not what I've been told. It can't be true, it can't be real. So again, any civilian death is terrible.
Yeah.
But Israel does its utmost to try to avoid civilian deaths. We call them up on the phone. We send messages on their phone saying, leave the building, we're going to bomb the building. Who does that? What? No other army. Not America, not England, not Russia, not anybody calls them up and says, we're giving you warning. We have a military spokesperson in Arabic. Okay, his name is Avichai Edri. Yeah. He's followed, unbelievable, by the Arabs. He says the truth. When he says, leave this area, we're going to bomb it, they know to leave the area. But Hamas and Hezbollah up north, they'll force the civilians to stay there because for them, they want the civilians to die. Why? Because it looks good for them. They could afterwards and say, oh, look, Israel killed 10 civilians. Yeah, but why were those civilians there? They were warned that it was going to be bombed. We do another thing, by the way, called knocking on the roof. Knocking on the roof is when there's a building that didn't evacuate,
Yeah.
they're first going to fire a bomb, a missile that doesn't have a warhead. It doesn't explode.
Yeah.
Okay, and it goes boom on the top of the building, but doesn't cause any real damage. And that's to scare people, to say, you heard that boom?
And then you
Get out of the building, because in a minute, the building is going to come down. If they don't live in the building, I mean, again, we call them, we tell them to leave on the radio, then we do this, this thing which does the knock on the roof. It's more than anybody can ask. And I will tell you again, as a combat soldier, we are taught over and over and over, be careful, you know, make sure that civilians aren't there. If there are civilians there, do everything in your power to try to limit the damage. But we didn't ask for this, right? We didn't ask for terrorists to be in hospitals. We didn't ask for hostages to be held in kindergartens and things like that. But that's the situation, and we're trying to fight the best war that we can under the very difficult situations that we have.
Like you have mentioned that before the soldier, like they will, before they have a bomb to a house, they maybe you do two things. Like you knock the door, and then like you got a call, and then to convince them to leave the house. But for those like information is so like we never heard about it, like never in the news and never in the internet, and then like even we type Israel and then the news and the website come in, it's just Israel is attacking Gaza, Israel is attacking, and then but nothing tell about what those soldiers do to try to help the people in the Gaza. So how do you think the news or the newspaper or the media, what are they misleading us to a wrong way? Or
It's a mix of a few different things. I think that the easy answer is to say anti-Semitism. They hate Jews. And because they hate Jews, because everybody's against us, that's why they're doing it. And the reason I say that's the easy answer is because I think that part of that is true. There are people around the world that it doesn't matter how much truth you'll show them and have every proof in the world to show them that they're wrong, they'll still say, no, I hate Israel, they're wrong, they're this, that, and the other. But a bigger answer to that is the news likes to do what's popular for the news, right? And right now the trend, unfortunately, is anti-Israel. So if that's the trend, if that's what's going to get the most likes and the most shares and the most comments, so that's what you're going to report. And there's a narrative now, and I understand why. A lot of people, right, in your mind, you'd like to think of a very simple answer to things. So it's simple to say Israel, strong, and the Palestinians, poor people. Israel's not strong. Israel's a tiny, find us on the map. It's very hard to find us on the map. We're a tiny little country in the middle of a huge Middle East, and then almost everybody in the Middle East wants to kill us. That's pretty scary. And yet somehow, in a very short amount of time, Israel is not even 80 years old yet, right? The current country of Israel is not even 80 years old yet, and yet look around. It's a beautiful country, developed country, with tremendous amount of technology, tremendous amount, again, of openness and acceptance. We have every kind of citizen here, of every color. I was mentioning how I have a friend whose family is from Taiwan. He's Jewish and from Taiwan, and he just joined the army. My commander in the army was an Arab. My commander. He's an Arab Muslim. Okay? I served with Christians. I served with Bedouin. I served with Druze. I served with every kind of person, whether they're Jewish or not Jewish, white, black, brown, whatever you want to call it, everything. Again, that's what the Middle East could be. I think Israel, and this connects maybe to the question of why do I love Israel? Israel is the promise of what the Middle East could look like. If you only decided that you wanted to spend the money that you're spending on military or terrorist activity, and they spend billions on these things, if you decided to spend that on education, on welfare for your civilians, on tourism, not terrorism, then you can have a beautiful country, a country that your citizens are proud of, right, and are not trying to run away. You have now refugees all over Europe that come from places like Afghanistan and Syria and Lebanon and Iraq and Yemen. Why? Why aren't you going to live in your own countries? We're the only country that I know of, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the only country that during war, people go to the country that's in war, right? I'm saying that Jews are returning home, Israelis. You would think that people would want to run away because there's war. I'm not saying that nobody has left the country. I'm sure there are a few people that have. But altogether, there's a huge amount of people that are coming to Israel now during war. That's not a normal thing. And again, it happens because people feel that this is home, even if they've never been here, right? You have Jews that have never been to Israel. You have Christians that have never been to Israel, but they say, I have to go to Israel now. I have to go now. I have to show my support. I have to show my love. And again, this is the promise of what it could be. Arabs are walking down the streets. They're shopping. They're working here. I said they could be an Arab doctor. There could be an Arab Supreme Court justice, which there was. You could serve. You could be in our parliament, right? There are Arab members of parliament, which is very strange because we keep being told that we're an apartheid country, right? Apartheid being the term that was used from South Africa, where there was a separation between the whites and the blacks, and the blacks had far fewer rights than the white people did. Okay, that's apartheid. When you say you can't sit here because this is for only white people, that's apartheid. But in Israel, anybody could sit here. Jewish, not Jewish, white, black, Asian, it doesn't matter. I'll tell you something here, there's nothing that's crazy. There could be an Arab prime minister of Israel. Do you know that? There's no law that says you can't be. It's just the majority,
Go for it.
Right. So it theoretically could happen. Again, this is what the Middle East could look like. And I hope that one day it does. I hope that I could travel to Egypt without even a visa. Just get on a train and go travel to Egypt, see the pyramids. Go travel to Saudi Arabia and try some food there. Like, I'd love for that to happen, but that's not the political situation here, unfortunately. And it's not out of our choice.
Is it like Israel is like more democracy, and then but the other country and the religion, because you don't have the same religion, so that's why other countries, your neighborhood, they don't like you, so that's the reason why you keep having a conflict and all kind of those things.
History is a funny thing. And I say that history is a funny thing because there was a time where Jews were living within Middle Eastern Muslim countries, right? Jews lived there for almost 2,000 years, 1,500 years. And they were accepted for a large part of that time when it was the Christians that would persecute the Jews more than the Muslims would. And you had people like Salahuddin, who was a major Muslim ruler. He was Kurdish. He was actually not Arab, but he was a Muslim ruler. He's the one that conquered Jerusalem from the Crusaders. His doctor, his personal doctor, was a Jew, a Jewish rabbi. Not just any, he was a famous Jewish rabbi, was the personal doctor of Salahuddin. And then at some point there was a switch. And you can talk about exactly why and how did that switch happen, and that's a whole other discussion. But there was a switch where suddenly the Jews who were accepted for, like I said, over 1,000 years in these Muslim countries, now suddenly were not accepted. And they started kicking them out. You know, people talk about colonialism. Oh, Israel is being, you're colonizing Palestinian land. Well, no, this is our country and has been our country for thousands of years. Our history is here. The whole formation of our nation is here. But nobody talks about the fact that all around the Middle East were millions of Jews, and now they're all gone. That's a genocide, right? You look at this country, like Afghanistan. I don't think there's one Jew left in Afghanistan. There was hundreds of thousands of Jews, not one Jew left. And you can go country by country. In this Arab country, maybe there's 100 Jews left. This Arab country, maybe there's, right, in Iran, maybe there's a few thousand. But there used to be hundreds of thousands. So why aren't people asking why in Iran there's only 2,000 Jews left, or 1,000, or whatever it is? It's nothing. It's because they were kicked out, they were massacred, and thankfully they had a place to go to, which was Israel. They also went to places like the United States and England and Europe and some other places, but even there, they weren't fully accepted. And a lot of them, again, the only place that would always accept Jews is Israel, which is why it's important to have Israel as the only national home for Jews. That's it, it's the only place we have. And it could be that you'll say, well, right now, let's say in, Singapore, let's say, it's safe for Jews. Yeah, maybe it is today.
Yeah.
What about tomorrow, when the government changes and it's somebody who hates Jews? Then who's going to protect them?
You've got uncertainty there.
So the only place that we have that will always be safe for Jews is Israel.
So that's why here is the home for you guys.
Yeah.
So
Other places, again, they're a place where we might live now. It's a temporary, let's say.
Yeah.
Temporary for 50 years, could be temporary for 100 years, might even be temporary for 300 years. But it, at some point, will come to an end because the people will turn against us, unfortunately. And it's a shame because if you look at like the Nobel Prize winners around the world,
yeah.
there's a massive amount of Jews that are Nobel Prize winners, but we're only a tiny little bit of the world population. But we care about the world. We care about making the world around us better, and not just, again, for Jews, because, again, you look at Israel as an example. In Israel, you don't only have Jews that live here. So you want to make the world a better place. That's why a lot of the different things that we know, your cell phone that you're using, you know that a lot of the technology in your cell phone was developed in Israel?
No.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. A lot of the microchip technology that we have that you might think like, oh, China or Taiwan's a microchip giant. They make, yeah, but where was the technology originally developed? A lot of it, I'm not saying all of it, but a lot of it was developed here. We are a small country with a big heart that cares not just about our little country or about the people of our religion, cares about everybody. And that's it. That's why, by the way, when there's a disaster anywhere in the world, a lot of times one of the first countries to offer help is Israel, including, when this is crazy, to its enemies. Okay? Including to countries that are not so nice to us. For example, Turkey, who now is very against Israel. And Erdogan, the president of Turkey, even said, we're cutting off ties with Turkey, with Israel, sorry. Except that he forgets that Turkey, a couple of years ago, just like I think 2 years ago maybe, had an earthquake, terrible earthquake, 10,000 people dead, something like that. Terrible earthquake. One of the first countries to offer aid was Israel. And not only did we offer aid, we went there, we sent soldiers there who are specialists in taking people out of like collapsed buildings and things like that. And Israel, even though a few other countries also sent aid, Israel was the most successful one. Israel pulled out the most amount of survivors from the buildings. And when it happened, people on the street were cheering.
Oh.
But immediately afterwards, the machine of hatred, goes back into Israel's terrible, Israel's bad, Israel wants to kill us all. And that's why there's no peace. Again, if it was just based on Israel and what we wanted to do for the world, there would be not only wonderful peace, there would be great progress, because Israel, together with scientists from Iran and from Saudi Arabia and from Jordan and from Lebanon, could do unbelievable things for the world. I hope we get there. I don't think it's impossible. I just think that it's highly unlikely, certainly as things are currently.
People just can't remember the good things. They just focus on the bad things. Like what kind of the bad things that you have done, but you forget how good you have been. That's so sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about do you think the people they are possessing over the world, or even in the nation, you got some people saying stop fire and stop the war and stop attacking Gaza. How do you think about that?
You know who wants to stop war the most? The people that are fighting in the war. You think somebody in America or in Germany that are holding a sign, stop the war, stop the war, they're all crying and they're all being dramatic because it looks good on TikTok. Ah! You think that he wants to stop the war, or she wants to stop the war more than the soldiers that are dying in the war, right? More than the civilians that are suffering because of the war? Stop with your nonsense for a second. Stop with your drama. Nobody wants the war to end more, again, than the people that are involved in it. Certainly the soldiers that have to put their lives on the line. Again, it's easy to say the person at home is worrying. Yes, it's not easy to worry. And I worry, for example, when my brother goes in.
Yeah.
It's easy to sit home and to say those things, but it's hard to be there. And I can guarantee you, again, that nobody wants the war to end more than the soldiers that have to fight the war, because the soldiers that are losing their lives, right? And it's the people in these areas that are losing their lives. So again, when you say Israel's attacking, Israel has zero interest in attacking anybody. The pilot that's dropping the bomb, he has a girlfriend back home or a wife and children. He just wants to be with them. He wants to be playing a game. He wants to be watching television. He wants to be drinking coffee. He doesn't want to be having to shoot at somebody, but we're forced into a situation that we don't want. So I said, if you're calling for ceasefire, that's amazing. Call for the release of the hostages. And if the hostages are released, which it's not going to happen, Hamas it's not going to work that way. But if they did, then most likely there would be a ceasefire after that, right? If you stop firing missiles at us, Hezbollah stops firing missiles from the north, then there could be a ceasefire. There's no desire here. Like I said, there's no posters anywhere that say, hey, go attack the north. We're not raised like that, not from our education and not from society as a whole. Again, is there some crazy person someplace who's saying, do this, do that? Yeah, there's annoying, stupid people everywhere. But as a society, it does not exist, this love of war or this desire to hurt anybody. And I truly believe, again, if everybody who says ceasefire, ceasefire, if they had the same, if it wasn't just aimed at Israel and said also to the other side, hey, you other side, stop attacking Israel, and release the hostages, then there would actually be peace. There could actually be peace. But the whole world is supporting terrorists right now, so why should there be a ceasefire? Why should there be, Hamas looks and says, if everybody's supporting us and they're all waving flags on American colleges and saying, oh, Hamas is my hero, I guess we're doing something right. Right? Doesn't matter that so many people in Gaza are dead. The day after, and you heard it here first, the day after the war ends, people in Gaza, Hamas are going to be walking around like this. Victory, what's victory? Gaza's destroyed. Tens of thousands of people are dead. Aren't you sad? Isn't it a sad day? No, they'd be so happy. Why are they so happy? Because the world supported them, and that's very sad.
But I think the protesters, like over the world, are they supporting Hamas, or they just want to stop the fire? Like they want peace, like stop hurting others and stop being hitting each other, killing and.
So again, that's a great question. First of all, yes, in a lot of the protests, I won't say all of them, but in a lot of the protests, there's 100% we support Hamas. They have signs, they're wearing the scarves of Hamas, they're waving flags of Hamas, and they're definitely saying we support Hamas.
Yeah.
That's first of all. But even in those that aren't supporting Hamas, you're saying, oh, they just want peace. But they don't. It's a one-sided thing because they're only directing their anger against Israel. I could have more sympathy for people, even who disagree with me, if they said, listen, Hamas shouldn't fire and shouldn't kill civilians and shouldn't take hostages and they should release the hostages, and Israel shouldn't attack and shouldn't, fight. Then I could understand, okay, this person wants peace. He doesn't want this person to hurt, doesn't want this person to hurt. But they're only saying on one side, only Israel should stop shooting. Only Israel. I don't know, how is that peace? So if we stop, then what do? They continue. Why do they continue? Because the entire world, even the protesters who keep saying, you say they want peace, but they're not asking the Arabs to do peace. They're only asking the Israelis to stop. And again, that is a question of no sane country in the world can say, okay, fine, we're not going to defend our citizens, we're not going to protect ourselves. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
They always, there's a line, it's a sentence that's been said here for many years. I think, people like almost smile when they say it because it'll never happen, but it's true, which is, if Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the enemy players that we have around us, if they laid down their weapons, then tomorrow there would be peace. But if Israel laid down its weapons, there would be no more Israel. And that's the difference.
So you think this is a little bit unfair for the world to Israel? Like they have a misunderstanding about you guys.
100%. And I'm all for peace. Trust me. I don't want to go back to the army. I don't want my brother to go to the army. I don't want anybody to have to go to the army or fight. I said, go enjoy falafel, a shawarma, and enjoy nice stuff. It's a situation that we didn't ask for. And again, if you're around the world and you're saying, oh, we just want peace, you don't really want peace. You want Israel not to exist. That's what you want. Just let's be honest. Just say it out loud. Because, again, you're not calling for them to not shoot at civilians. You're only saying, Israel is killing civilians. Okay, and what about the other side again? So if you told me both sides are doing this, let's figure out. Now, by the way, I don't think it's wrong to say, Israel, you have to be careful. Because Israel says about itself, we have to be careful. And I agree. We should try everything we can to not hurt civilians. I'll tell you another thing that we do. We have planes that go over Gaza and drop leaflets, okay, pieces of paper. The pieces of paper say, either leave this area because we're going to bomb it, or go to this area because it's safe, or go to this area because we're going to give food, or release, whatever it is. No other country in the world does that. Russia doesn't tell Ukraine, this city in 2 hours we're bombing, or whatever it is. America didn't go to Japan and say, hey guys, I just want you to know, be careful. Don't do that. Now again, does that mean that no civilians get hurt? Yes, civilians do get hurt. And they get hurt, unfortunately, again, because they're being used as human shields. I feel terrible for them. I don't want the people of Gaza to live underneath the horrible, horrible rule of Hamas. And again, you don't have to believe me. Look on YouTube. See, what do the people of Gaza say about Hamas? Well, when they were under the control of Hamas, they couldn't say a lot because they'd be tortured or killed. But now that Israel is there, the army is there, you see them running over and saying, we hate Hamas, we want it to be over, we want the nightmare to be over. And it's the same thing also in Lebanon. The people of Lebanon don't want Hezbollah to control their lives. They just want to be a farmer or a teacher or whatever it is that they were doing. They don't want to shoot at Israel, and they don't want Israel shooting at them. But they're suffering because Hezbollah forced a war on them, and the people of Gaza are suffering because Hamas forced a war. And again, you could see, I just mentioned how Israel just found last week thousands of hours of video of Hamas officials torturing Gazan people for everything and anything you can imagine. They kill gay people there. They kill anybody that they think is either working for Israel or just against Hamas. If you maybe said something against Hamas, you'll be tortured. And again, you don't have to believe me. You can look on YouTube and say, Hamas torturing Gazans, and find it. And it's terrible. It breaks my heart to see it. And these aren't my people, but it still breaks my heart to see it. Yeah. I don't want them to suffer that. In Iran, right, they just had a woman, I think this was a week or two ago, a woman was in her underwear in public. And she was doing that as a protest because in Iran, they passed a law where you have to cover everything. And she didn't want to do that. Or cover most things, whatever it is. She didn't want to do that. So this was her protest. But what do you think happened to this girl? Do you think that they said to her, just put on, a jacket and you can go home? No, they arrested her. I'm sure they have been brutal to her. And they actually, at least what they say that they sent her to a psychiatric hospital to check out her head because she must be crazy. Maybe she's not crazy, maybe she just wants to be free. Did you ever think of that? But again, it's a... So does it mean that all of Iran is bad or all of Iran is our enemy? 100% not. In fact, we share a lot with the Iranian people, the Persian culture. We would love to have peace with Iran. I have no idea why Iran wants to shoot missiles at us. We have zero interest in any sort of conflict with them. But what can I say? They think about us a lot. I guess I don't know what we are. They dream about us a lot. You make your own decision what that means. But I don't think about them as much as they think about us, to put it that way.
How about, I read some news, like the government in Israel, they just blocking the whole Gaza, and then all the the food, the material, and even the medical material, they can't go into Gaza.
Right.
And the UN and all the charity, they want to help the citizen in Gaza, but they can't get into it because all the road and all the area are blocked. And they think it's just a murder for the Gaza people because they got no food. And even they are hurt. They can't help them because they didn't have a medical material. How do you think that?
So that's another excellent question that I'm very happy you asked. If you look at the map of Gaza, that's another lie that people have grown up with. Keep saying the Israeli blockade or the siege of Gaza, like Israel's... If you look on the map, Israel controls 3 sides. Okay, the sea from the north, and so it's west, east, and north. But the southern border of Gaza is Egypt. Why does nobody talk about that? You can't have a siege of a place unless you completely encircle it. If a place is only circled from 3 sides, it's not a siege, right? Nobody asks, well, if Egypt, which is a Muslim country, controls the other border, how can it be an Israeli blockade, first of all? Second of all, the definition of a siege and blockade is where nothing comes in and nothing comes out. That's what the definition of a siege is. And yet, before October 7th, thousands, if not tens of thousands of Gazans worked in Israel. Did you know that? Not only do they come across the border and work in Israel, but goods from Gaza come into Israel. So it's coming out of Gaza, and goods from Israel go into Gaza. Wow, that's a terrible blockade. If we were doing a blockade of Gaza, then I would give us a failing grade. And I don't mean to make a joke of it, but it's such a silly concept. Even now, first of all, forget about what happened before that. I said the things were going to both sides.
Yeah.
What's happening now during the war? Let's talk about that. What country ever in the history of warfare ever provided aid to its enemies? It never happened. Russia is not sending aid into Ukraine. Okay? America didn't deliver aid to Germany during World War II or Japan, right? Only Israel, for some reason, is expected to deliver aid. But I'll tell you another thing. Not only are we expected, we do. There is no blockade of Gaza, right? There is control of three sides, and we are careful as to what comes in and goes out. But every single day, trucks go into Gaza. Every day. You could say, well, we need more trucks. Okay, that's another discussion. So maybe instead of 50 trucks, there should be 100 trucks. Maybe instead of 100 trucks, there should be 200 trucks. But the fact is that there's aid constantly going in. It has food and medicine. The question you should be asking is not why is Israel not allowing aid in, because aid is going in. And again, you don't have to believe me. You just have to search for videos of seeing these endless lines of trucks that are going in. What you should be asking is why isn't that aid always going to the civilian population? That's a great question. And the answer to that is because the aid is hijacked by Hamas, who takes those things for themselves, right? And then they take the free aid, it's free aid that's given by the world, and sometimes even by Israel itself, and then they sell it at unbelievably expensive prices to the people of Gaza, who should be getting it for free. So I don't understand, where's the world who's complaining about that? Where's the UN Council saying it's terrible what Hamas is doing? They're stealing from their own people. So again, we're asked, why isn't Israel sending in aid? And the answer to that is, we don't have to send in aid because we're at war, but because we don't want people to suffer, we are sending in aid. And there's more aid going in. I saw a statistic that was saying that there was enough food going in the past year to feed the people of Gaza for 3 years. However, I'm not saying everybody there is full of crazy amounts of food. They're not getting equal access to the food because Hamas is stealing the food. And you could, again, see the videos of people with guns coming over and taking over the trucks, right? And killing people who are trying to come. I do believe that there are hungry people. It's not saying that I don't believe there are hungry people. There are hungry people in Gaza. Some, not everybody. Some people are hungry, but they can't get access to the food, not because the food doesn't exist in Gaza, not because Israel isn't allowing food in, but because Hamas is taking over that food. Now, specifically, you have an organization, and again, you seem like an intelligent person. So let me ask you, maybe you haven't thought of this before. Why does nobody ask a very simple question? Did you know that the United Nations has a organization for refugees, okay? For worldwide refugees. Everybody in the entire world is one organization, except the Palestinians. They're the only people in the entire world that have their own UN agency. There's millions of refugees from Africa and millions of refugees from Syria and millions from all these different places. They all have one organization, and the Palestinians have their own organization. Nobody asks why, right? Why would they have their own separate organization? Why isn't there an organization for African refugees and the organization for Syrian refugees and the organization for Afghani refugees? No, there's just one organization that's for everybody, and then a separate one that's for the Palestinians. That's first of all. Another thing that's very strange is that, again, what is the definition of a refugee? When you're escaping some sort of a dangerous situation, but once you get to another place where you are then accepted, you're no longer a refugee, right? So if you escape from Hong Kong, You might be a refugee, well, unless again you become an American citizen or British citizen or whatever it is. But let's say your generation is a refugee. Your children that are born in England or America or wherever are not refugees anymore.
Yeah.
Because they're American citizens or British citizens or whatever, French citizens. The Palestinians are the only people in the entire world where refugee status goes through generations. Isn't that strange? Meaning, if you are a Palestinian and you live in America, and you've been in America for 4 generations, your your great-grandchildren are still considered by the UN and the world, apparently, refugees. That's very strange.
I think it depends on whether you can get the identity, like you get a passport, like even though you immigrate, like you are a refugee and then you go into America, but the country may not accept you. Like they still think you are a refugee and then you don't have an ID card and then you don't have a passport. You live in America, but you are not illegally a citizen in America.
And I'm not referring to that. I'm saying people that go to America or France or Germany and become citizens.
So they are already citizens.
If you are a citizen, you're no longer a refugee.
Yeah, agree.
And certainly if your children are born in that country and have citizenship of that country, you can't be a refugee, you have a citizenship.
Yeah.
Right? You can say, I'm not originally from here, that's fine, but you're still not a refugee. And I said the Palestinians are the only one that by UN definition, even 10 generations later, even 100 generations later, they could have one citizenship, they could have 2 or 3 citizenships of different countries, they're still considered refugees. And nobody with a brain, nobody with intelligence ever seems to ask, why? Why only them? Right? There's billions of people in the world. Why only the Palestinians are considered refugees forever? Maybe it's because people want them to be considered refugees so that there can always be a problem and there can always be conflict with Israel, right? Because if they were not be considered refugees, it wouldn't be an issue.
But as an organization like UN, they suppose be fair, and they be
Supposed
peace.
to be fair.
Yeah, supposed to be fair. Like right, I don't know. Like they're supposed to be fair, and they want everything to be peaceful, right? So, and I didn't study much about it, so I'm not sure.
I have a task for you, and a task for everybody at home. Again, you don't have to believe everything that I'm saying. You could think that I'm making it up. It's fine. I want you to write down questions and then to look it up and to find out the truth on your own. You said that the UN is supposed to be fair. Did you know, right, Israel is a tiny little country. It's a tiny country both size-wise and also population. We're only now, almost 80 years into since the creation of the modern state of Israel, and we're coming up to about 10 million people, out of which 2 million are Muslim. Okay, so there's about less than 8 million Jews here, because there are also Christians and others. Did you know that there are more UN resolutions against Israel than the entire world combined? Okay? Look this up. More than North Korea, more than Iran, more than Sudan, more than any other country that you might think might have issues. Not just more than any one country, more than all the countries in the entire world. We are what, 6 billion people, 7 billion, 8 billion? I don't know. There's a lot of billion people in the world. More than the entire world combined are resolutions against Israel. Does that not seem a little bit strange? Even if we were a bad country, let's say we really were a terrible country. So I could understand, okay, we're a terrible country, so we could get as many resolutions as some other countries also considered terrible.
Yeah.
But there's more resolutions against Israel than the entire world combined. How can anybody from France or Taiwan or China or Russia or America not look at that simple fact and say, huh, I never thought of that before, but that's strange that such a tiny little country, even if it were true, which it's not true that we're so terrible, but even if it were true that we're so terrible, how is Israel so horrible that it gets more condemnations than the entire world combined?
I got an opinion, like, because, like, they think Israel, that they can resolve those problems through communication, through conversation, but like North Korea, how can you? They think
So you're saying that there's no point in condemning North Korea, there's no point in condemning other countries that are doing terrible, terrible human...
It's no point. It's their leaders, they're not listening to them. So it's hard for them to like doing
So you're
the
saying only because Israel might listen to it, it's worth condemning Israel, because which then, though that then proves something else, I guess, which means if we are willing to listen, then I guess we can't be that terrible, right? Because we're willing to listen.
No.
You went into a good logic loop.
No, I think I'm not sure why they will be here, like putting so many resolving and resolution organization here, and but like compared to some country like North Korea, it's so hard for them to do that. So I think that's the only country, because you're surrounded by your neighborhood, and then having some little conflict, big conflict, having war, and sometimes, but the other country, they can't get in, and you are the only one that...
Right, we are the only real democracy in the area. So maybe people should stop trying to hate so much on the only real democracy. And again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't protest. In Israel, there are protests against the government.
Yeah.
Not everybody here is happy with something that the government says. It's okay to not always agree, like I said. There's a difference between not agreeing, and there's a difference between peacefully protesting and for actively calling for the destruction of something.
Yeah.
When you're at a protest and you say, "From the river to the sea," which it's such a fun song to sing, "From the river to the sea," what it means is that there's no more Israel, that Israel's wiped off the map, and that there are no more Jews, they're gone. That is a call for genocide. When you say, we want intifada, what is intifada? Intifada is an armed fight, right? That's not a peaceful fight. It's not we're going to, Nelson Mandela in South Africa led a peaceful, it's not that. I'm all for peace. Again, I don't want my children to have to go through what I went through. I don't want my grandchildren to have to go through what I went through. I want them to be able to go and eat, like I said, by the pyramids, or go travel to Jordan, or travel to wherever in the Middle East. And to do so without even a visa, because we get along so well. No amount of world condemnation against Israel is changing the people around us and their desire to kill us. So condemning Israel doesn't help, because we're the ones that actually do want peace. And you might not agree with everything we do. You might think that we should do it better. That's fine. It's okay. You could have your opinion. You're also welcome, by the way, instead of just saying, you shouldn't do this. Okay, but tell us what we should do. If you think that we shouldn't attack the hospital that has terrorists and missiles and bombs inside of it, then what should we do in order to make sure that the terrorists don't stay there? What should we do? Should we ask them nicely? Maybe we should send them ice cream, and if we give them enough ice cream, then they're going to leave the hospital and they're not going to try to kill us? I mean, again, it sounds ridiculous because it is ridiculous. So again, it's easy to sit around the world and to say Israel shouldn't do this. But what should Israel do? In a way, again, that's a logical way where we can still survive. Because to just say, well, Israel should just leave. Okay, good. Where should we go? Should we go to Taiwan? Yeah? Should Taiwan become the Jewish country? What about Madagascar, I don't know, maybe we'll take over Madagascar, and Madagascar will be the Jewish homeland. What does that mean, leave? Go where? We don't have any place else to go. This is our only home. And you see, by the way, now you can say, oh, go to Europe. Europe, in a few years, is not going to have any Jews left. The Jews of Europe are leaving because it's scary to live in Europe these days. If you're in Amsterdam, you're going to get hunted. You're in Ireland, oh, they hate the Jews in Ireland. So where can a Jew live that's safe?
Israel.
It's the only place that we have.
Understand. Thank you for the interview today.
Very welcome.
Last two questions.
Yes, sure.
But it's not about Israel.
No problem.
We know that you are curious about like the Asian and Taiwan and even Hong Kong, Singapore, something. How do you think about your Asian?
I think Israelis are very, very interested in Asia. It's a very common thing for Israelis to finish the army and their vacation after the stressful years of the army is they'll go to Thailand and Nepal and all these different places. Because yes, people say, well, because it's cheap. Yeah, but there are other cheap places in the world, not just there. You can go, I'm sure, to Bulgaria. I don't think Bulgaria is so expensive. But there's a certain amount of mystical, mysterious, interesting, right? There's a lot of shared cultural things, I think, of things like family and hard work and, a love of food and all sorts of interesting, that make it very, very attractive for Israelis to go to all these various different places. Vietnam and even China, and I'm not so sure, maybe Taiwan is, they know about it a little bit less, but there's definitely a sort of connection to that kind of culture that Israelis are very much into. And while people in Taiwan might not know that much about us, I'm not saying that Israelis know a lot about Taiwan, but it's in the news. We do hear about it. We hear about the whole thing, the tensions with China, and Israelis will actually talk about it on just a regular, they're sitting around talking about stuff and say like, gosh, I really hope that China doesn't do anything, against Taiwan. Like we care about the Taiwanese people, even though most Israelis have never met somebody from Taiwan.
That's happy to hear it.
I'm happy to have met you, and it's always interesting to be able to have cross-cultural discussions. And again, you don't always have to agree eye to eye on everything, and that's okay. You don't have to have the same taste in music or fashion or food, and you can still be able to get along. You can still see the basic humanity in each person and say, okay, that's what I'm connecting to. And again, I hope that happens here in the Middle East with everybody. I hope that happens around the world. I don't hold a grudge against anybody in the world. I don't care if you're Christian or Buddhist or Muslim. I don't care if you're from Europe or Asia or anywhere. It doesn't matter. We're happy to be open and welcome and friendly, and we hope that is returned to us. I said I'd be happy to travel one day to Taiwan if that ever happens.
Welcome.
Somebody just invited me the other day to Australia. I've never been. I'd be happy to go to Australia. So I think that Israelis think very well of Asian people in general. I don't know, again, that if you gave them a map and said, can you find exactly where is Vietnam? Can you find exactly where Laos is? Or they might not know geography so well, but again, they'll feel that connection, say, ooh, that's a place that I want to go to. I want to see the culture. I want to hear the music. I want to see the people. I want to taste the food. It's very much, Israelis are a very adventurous people. We're not shy and quiet. We're adventurous. We like to experience life, to taste life. So,
and you guys are so friendly.
What?
So friendly. Like, we're walking in the street, so many people will asking, where you from? And are you Chinese? And then, like, when when we in the restaurant and
Yeah.
then we don't know what to do, like because people are ordering for the pizza and then we don't know what should we do, like we have to pay first or then we order first and then someone just and we just stand
Stood
there
there.
and then someone just guiding us and then you should go pay first and then come back with the bill and then show the guy what you want and then so it's so funny. It's just the first night that we come here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so nice to meeting you guys. Like judging a people or judging a country, you have to like. It's so easy to judging them, but at least I think you have to have a personal experience to get along with them. So and then you judge after you see it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, look, again, Israel, there is no person or government or country that is perfect in every single way. I'm not saying that. This is just part of the religion in general. The Jewish religion is always to try to be better. So we can always try to improve. And I want to improve the relations with the countries around us, with the peoples around us. But it has to be mutual. Again, it has to come from both sides. It's
Yeah.
easy to say, Israel should make peace. But who should we make peace with? We can only make peace with people that want to make peace with us.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will come soon.
Last question for the audience of Taiwan, and anything you wanted to tell them or anything you wanted to say to them?
Well, we're very appreciative that you're showing an interest. I hope that I've been able to give you a small glimpse into what's happening here. I know in one interview it's not, suddenly now I know everything about the conflict or I know all the answers, but I hope that this gives you the interest to say, okay, now I want to look a little bit further into this and to say maybe what I'm hearing from all around is not necessarily exactly correct. And maybe that there's a certain agenda that's been influencing a lot of this. And to understand that, again, Israel is a very welcoming place to everybody. And you don't have to be Jewish to enjoy it, and you don't have to be white to enjoy it, and you don't have to be this, that, and the other. You can come here, you can enjoy the flavors of the different cultures, and Israel is a big melting pot of a lot of different cultures. And again, I hope that your next visit here, I hope this is your first visit, but I hope it's not your last visit.
Yeah.
I hope that you will see even more progress and more, people that are inclusive. And again, it can happen. It just requires partners on the other side as well. So again, I hope the people of Taiwan look at this and say, Israel is a place that I would like to visit. I want to meet the people there. I want to talk to the people there. And being supportive of Israel, by the way, doesn't mean that you're anti-Arab or anti-Palestinian. You could also support Israel and also support Palestine. Such a shocking concept. Again, that's why you were talking about the protests, but they want peace. Well, they don't want peace because they only want one side of the issue. If they stood there and they said, we want peace for Israel and we want peace for Palestine and we want them to get, then I could say, okay, that's a protest for peace. But they're only talking Palestine, Palestine, Palestine. Israel doesn't exist in that kind of mindset. So again, I hope that they come here. You could support Israel, you could support Palestine, you could love Arabs, you could love Muslim culture, that's fine, it's all around us. And that's what I want them to take away from this. And that's it. I hope that they enjoyed. I hope you managed to learn things, and I definitely learned some things from you guys.
Thank you. We too learn a lot from you, like providing so much information for us and answering all the questions. I hope people in Taiwan, they may know it. And then, yeah, thank you for the interview.
You're very welcome. 谢谢，谢谢。